Hi everybody, this is Philip Martin, and this is On Film, On Video. It seems to be working, so we're going to try to keep going right through it. Anyway, the big news, maybe not the biggest news, but the big news this week is that Avatar is back in theaters. Okay, it's been 12 years since Avatar has been in theaters. It's been 12 years since Avatar has been released. They have a sequel that's coming out in December, which is the reason they're re-releasing the film to theaters now. And to be honest, if you haven't seen the film, the best way to see the film, and this is one of the, I don't say this about every film because I don't believe it, but this is one film that really is much better to see in a theater than it is to see on your home screen, your big screen at home. But I'm not the best person to talk about Avatar. So we've enlisted a good person to talk about Avatar. So without any further ado, here is a good person to talk about Avatar.
Well, when Avatar first came out, people didn't really know what to expect. And when they walked into a movie theater, they sat down and they saw a film that was authored to take advantage of the big screen, the giant screen. In the case of IMAX, the 3D, which was fairly new at that time. I think Avatar was the first really big movie in 3D, and so it took them on an experience that they weren't expecting. They were positively surprised. There was no way we could sort of tell people in advance in a 30-second TV spot what was cool about this movie. You just had to sit down and start watching it. Then on top of that, I worked with some of the best design artists in the world to create that world and all the creatures in it, and this beautiful rainforest and all this heavy hardware that came with the humans and so on from Earth, and it was a bit of a visual pageant. And thirdly, I think that they responded to the love story, to the emotions of the film. So it kind of hit on all cylinders of beauty, of wonder, of epic action, and with real emotion.
This is where you're supposed to stop it and cut away to yourself asking question of James Cameron, which is kind of funny. I kind of always wanted to do this. I'm not going to do this again, but it's sort of like this is the publicity materials that the studios send out, and if you're on a TV station or you have a vlog or a podcast or something like that, you can just sort of like cut them up and drop yourself in here. And I'm not saying, often when you see interviews conducted with people like James Cameron, they're actually interviews with people like James Cameron.
Well, here's the interesting thing is there's if you're under sort of 22 years old ish, you probably almost certainly didn't see Avatar in a movie theater. So if you're a fan of a movie that you've seen, at home on TV or on a laptop or some device. So you really haven't seen the movie. So you kind of get to watch it for the first time all over again with all of that dimensionality, literally and figuratively, that you don't experience unless you go to the cinema. And ideally go to, a high-end cinema that's got the good 3D and the laser projection if it's available in your area or whatever. And you'll experience a version of the film that it's pretty hard to imagine just watching it on a 2D television set. So I think all of the things that worked the first time when the film came out and was this phenomenal hit are going to work again, especially for a young audience that has never seen it in a theater. And even if you saw it in a theater back then, if you're in your 20s, 30s, whatever, you're going to see it at a level beyond what you experienced then, because projectors are brighter. We have laser projection now. We remastered the film in 4K, so it's clearer. We've done parts of it at high frame rates to smooth out the 3D, so there's no kind of little bits of strobing or anything like that. So it's better 3D. The colors are beautiful. It's 4K, it's high dynamic range. It's remastered in Atmos 9.1 sound, so it looks better, it sounds better. So even if you saw it before, it's worth seeing it again at this point.
Here's another stopping point where I can just jump in here. See, this is how it works. There's no shade on James Cameron, no shade on Avatar. I'm just explaining to you this is the way the publicity machine works. I now get to ask James Cameron another question like, tell me about your nice watch, which he designed for Rolex. So actually, but he's not going to respond to that, I don't think.
In remastering the film, what we strive to do was to just optimize the experience, to enhance that sense of wonder and beauty by improving the 3D slightly, and doing that using high frame rate and high dynamic range and things like that. I mean, I've got a very experienced team that's worked with me now on 3D projects for 20 years. We sort of knew what we always wanted to do, and we just did it. We didn't change the story. We didn't change the cut of the movie, although there might be a little surprise in there someplace if you're paying attention. But basically, it's the same film in terms of the storytelling, but the visual presentation is just brighter, clearer, sharper, sounds better, Atmos 9.1 sound, which we didn't have available back then. So it pretty much rocks the house. Well, I think there were a couple of motivators for us in terms of remastering the film, going through all that effort to bring it back out. The first, and I think probably most important one, is you've got a whole generation of young movie fans that may or may not know the movie, but they certainly haven't seen it in a movie theater. And Avatar is the kind of film that was authored to be seen in a movie theater. I mean, it did very well on home video, blah, 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 but it was authored to be seen and experienced in that immersive, you are there kind of setting of the cinema in 3D, large screen, great sound, all that sort of thing. And all the attention to detail that we put into the world, into the mix, into the music, into the action, the animation, design of the creatures, everything. It all pays off better in that setting. So, sure, I'd love to bring Avatar back out every 10 years, you know what I mean? Just so that people can experience it in a movie theater. But obviously the second motivation was it's been quite a while since we made the first film. We're bringing out another Avatar film, The Way of Water, in a couple months. And people even who know the film may not remember some of the details. And there are a lot of people, we can't assume that everybody that might want to see The Way of Water has seen the first film. So getting it out there, making it available to people to have a kind of little event among their friends or within their family, to go out and watch the film. It's a great way to prepare yourself for The Way of Water and make this kind of a season of Avatar, if you will. You get to live in that world. People like, in their fantasy worlds, they like persistent world. They like to see the characters over time. They like to just be in the world. And when we released the first film, people said it was too short. We wanted to be there longer. And so people went back and they went back and they went back. So now, especially for our younger fans, now you can see it in the movie theater, and then you can segue right into seeing The Way of Water in a theater, and you'll have that persistent world. That fantasy world is something that you can invest in emotionally. We could have put in a lot of scenes that were taken out, as we were editing the film. And in fact, in 2010, in summer, 6 months after we released the film initially, we did release a longer version of the film, 8 minutes longer, and that was very well received. A lot of people went back and saw it in a theater again then. We decided not to do that. We thought, all right, fine. If it's this kind of classic movie, let's not change a frame. Let's put it out the way the vast majority of people saw it, not muddy the water. But I did decide to make one tiny change toward the end of the film. And so I challenged people to see if they could spot what it is. It's not a big thing. It's no big reveal, but it does make a nice little step toward the sequel to The Way of Water, which is coming out a couple months later.
Now, I want to be clear that not everybody does this. I used to see Renee Shapiro at junkets when she was working for KATV, and she would go in and have 5 minutes with a celebrity, with a star, and they would sit there and talk, and she would actually have a conversation, and she would do funny things and say funny things and get genuine reactions from them, and it was not this canned stuff. And this canned stuff has a use. I mean, it's sort of like, I think that what Cameron is saying here is pretty valuable to talk about Avatar than I am. So it's just, it's just a tool that people use. I just want you to know that sometimes it's not always what it seems, and it's not like, he's called into, the local station as a favor to somebody, and that they're, they're old pals or anything. That's all. It's just a joke on the ilk, because some of them would like you to believe that. Anyway, what else we've got this week? Well, it's getting to be better. It's getting to be better. Don't worry, Darling does not sound like a great film, but it's an interesting film, and I think reading the review, I think it was an interesting idea. Now, Blonde is coming out next week on Netflix. I thought it was going to be in theaters last week here, but it wasn't. I don't think it snuck in this week. I've got some thoughts on it, but I'm saving those for my Sunday perspective column. And Piers is going to have the review of it next week. So that's when we're really going to kick off our official sort of fall movie stuff, is next week. That's when we start diving into the big movies. So I hope you'll join us then. I hope you enjoyed this week. I hope you enjoyed my little James Cameron deal. And we'll see.